Thank you, everyone, for this week's Behind the Data podcast. Here we have Steve Carpenter from Extract Production. Looking forward, Steve, thank you for accepting my invite. Looking forward to a brief chat about what's happening in supply chain in your company in general, and how the data, analytics, AI is changing. That's kind of what I like to talk to you and learn and share with our audience. Thank you for accepting. Go ahead with your quick intro.
Yeah, thank you, Ganesh, for having me here today. I'm excited to be a part of this and talk about this with you. So, as you said, my name is Steve Carpenter. I'm a strategic analyst for supply chain and quality for extract production companies, based out of here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow.
We've met and talked several times. It's been a wonderful relationship.
Mm-hmm. So maybe just to give you context, right? I think we both know, but from audience perspective, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Conversite, a conversational insights AI analytics platform company. We are helping supply chain companies with data analytics and insights. So what do you do in your role? What is your company up to? What are some of the key mission critical things you're up to?
I started just here recently. I think I've just now come on board within a little over a year. And really part of the driving force that I had when I came on board was to modernize and make our entire supply chain operation more efficient, smarter. And that kind of led us down the path of AI, particularly with some of the impacts that we were already seeing. And the lack of visibility that we had across the board is not something that you're aware of it, right? I mean, that there's some things you don't see, or maybe some pictures you're not getting the whole image of, but you're never really sure just how much of it you're not getting until you finally have it.
Yeah.
And so with AI, that was a huge goal that we had, to bring that into our supply chain process and really create these stories for us and help us drive better action, smarter decisions, and do so in a more pertinent timeline. And so my role within the company is creating that story with AI, using the AI platform and making that available to my team and leadership.
Got it. So, Steve, you started with the word supply chain efficiency. You want to bring more supply chain efficiency. How do you know a company is not or do not have a supply chain efficiency? What is that? What are some of the indicators, though?
Yeah.
Is it just more inventory, or like what are some of the indicators?
I think there's some unique indicators to, I would almost say every industry, and even within that, you get more microscopic at the individual company levels, right?
Yeah.
I think some universal ones, for supply chain efficiency across the board is going to heavily do with your landing dates and your inventory turns overall. Are you carrying too much? Are you getting in what you need to when you need to?
Okay.
Are you monitoring your cost increases and growth across the board? Are you procuring enough vendors to keep yourself from being, to manage your risk level, really?
Yeah.
These are, for us, one of the big indicators that we identified early on that we said we want to make this a factor for our team was months on hand. So we quickly teamed up together and made a plan to kind of drive inventory in our supply chain operation that way. And for us, it's been a very powerful tool, and not really something that we had access to until we brought our AI into the process.
So, when I, connect with a number of leaders, when they talk about, we have a lot of inventory, in my view, it is not purely supply chain teams' problem. They bought a lot of they brought all the inventory because they had something in mind.
Right.
It may be a bad forecast, or it may be a bad visibility. So not specific to Extract, but in general, I know you have been into many companies. In general, what lead to that kind of, inventory, high volume inventory, where your inventory turn is not as expected?
That's a great point, right? So And throughout my adventures so far in my career, I found that the industry standard, no matter where you're at, often is overreaction rather than
Okay.
proaction.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so we don't know what the impact is going to be. We don't know what the future may hold for these commodities or these
Got it.
high value products. And so let's buy that market space and availability while we can.
Okay.
And over time, when you overreact like that, the longer you hold that, if you're not getting your inventory turned, your margin value within that product begins to chip away month after month. So whatever built-in profit revenue you had in that slowly begins to dissipate and eventually fade away. So
Okay.
supply chain impact can have a huge impact on your actual revenue turns and your PPV on your inventory.
Got it. So now, so for whatever reason, high expectation on the growth or higher risk from the supplier side, one way or other, I think the last 2 years when I spoke to many companies, especially, I still remember like Q3 of 2020, like no one was talking about excess inventory, rather like stockouts, right? And now exactly 2 years or a year later, 2 years later, now we are like everybody talking about excess inventory. How do I optimize it? So yeah, your point on overreacting, maybe, yeah, correct. So now I know you are in the manufacturing business.
Mhm.
From a manufacturing business perspective, I know as manufacturing companies operate at a very, very lean margin. In that context, preventing stock out is higher priority, or reducing excess inventory, which takes higher priority when you are talking to your CFOs?
Well, it kind of depends on which side you're talking to. Are you talking
Okay.
to the production side, or are we talking to the accounting side? If we're talking
Makes
to
sense.
production side, they're going to tell you stock outs is the absolute
Sure.
most critical factor. If
Right.
we're talking to the accounting side, they're going to tell you that excess is the most critical factor.
Most critical, right?
And it's one of those challenges where you can't sell product that you don't have, right?
Yes.
I need Legos to build what I provide to my customers, and I need to make sure I have those Legos. The challenge here comes to getting really the entire team on the same page and being realistic with what your expectations are, and trying to create this vision that everyone buys into. That's the direction we're trying to go. I have a couple colleagues, in professional friend group where they've kind of started that similar journey down the path together with their own sales team and accounting, and it's they're telling the same stories that I've been experiencing for the last couple of years. So it's been pretty fun.
Okay. So now there are, any time when I'm hearing about, we are moving into a new ERP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the ERP is supposed to solve that problem, isn't it? Like, bring that fine-tuned balance between the demand and supply. So where is the gap? What gap the ERPs are creating? ERPs or warehouse management systems, MRPs, whatever you call. Where is that system stop? And why do you look for an additional analytics or AI? What's a gap?
I'm really excited to talk about this one, particularly coming back from the holiday break that we had. This is one of the conversations that my team had with our leadership. Okay. Is what is the limitations and really the ultimate capacity of our current ERP system? Okay. And what kind of situation can we find ourselves in the near future? Having been a part of several ERP implementations and using several variations, really, I think they all have limited reporting capabilities. Mm-hmm. And often the individual businesses try to curtail them to be very specific to their business needs, which is understandable. It's what they're supposed to do. Yeah. But the flaw in that is that the data can often be very skewed to present the story that you want, not necessarily the story that is true. Okay. And so when we get into that mess, reporting capabilities and visibility is a huge access to it. Ease of usability, is it intuitive? There's
Yeah.
all these different aspects that go into it. And for us, those are really the biggest aspects. And
Got it.
that gap there, that I would say that the biggest gap between that demand planning and the ERP system there really ultimately comes down to user input.
You said it.
No
Yeah.
matter what ERP system you're operating in, you still have an external source, an external team that
Yes.
is vying together to put together a forecast, and you input that, and that ERP system does what it does to run with that. There are very few that I'm aware of that will generate and create that demand plan for you on its own in a accurate timeline, or even an accurate manner at all for product.
Yeah, I think the new term I heard for, I think last couple of years, called response planning,
Right.
and self-adjusting, or the plan look at the demand pattern changes, and supply risk can automatically calibrate itself and provide that. I think that's where I believe the modern age, the AI systems are coming in. So I know you have been in this journey on the analytics and AI a little bit. Um, when people think about AI and analytics, when I talk to supply chain leaders from a large Fortune 500 versus, mid-sized companies, all of them feel there is a need, but there is always like, can I afford it? Can I do it? And do we have the resources who can understand and appreciate the value? So a lot of questions comes, right? So when you are thinking about going, if I need something more than my ERP, my Excel's alone is not enough. What does that process look like? Who all you need to convince? And how do you yourself get convinced?
Well, I mean, with that impact, when it comes to who all do I need to convince, it's really going to be my tenured team around the experience, trend, and gut reliability field, right?
Yeah.
I mean, across several industries and companies, you're going to have this wonderful group of people who have such a strong tribal knowledge and gut feel for their market and business that
Yes,
they really trust that instinct there. And that's just absolutely wonderful. And where I think AI can really come into that is help validate a lot of that experience that they have in their decision-making proposals, right? So we can say, this is what I think is happening, and this is what I predict with the market conditions and this customer. And then we can ask the AI for its input, and it can really validate or tell us that we're off the mark a little bit and it's not seeing quite the same thing.
yeah.
And we've had several examples of that just here within the last quarter within our own team. And that's the role that I play in trying to convince my team is we have to remove the feel part of it. I feel we have to remove that part of it and build in the decision-making logic.
Got it.
That is more relevant towards driving action. It's hard to drive action off of feelings. It's really easy to drive action off of clear, defined logic.
So can I say the indication for a new system, is it like a lot of manual reporting, or is it not able to answer questions from your CFO, or is it real missing, like frequent stockouts? What triggers that? Yes, I need a new system. What's a business trigger?
What's the business to get there that kind of decides whether or not we need a new system?
Yes.
Yeah, ultimately it's going to come down to, there's several factors there, of course, right? Is the program responsive? Is the ERP responsive enough? Can it handle what we're trying to do, whether it be from multi-level bombs, reporting aspects? I have a colleague right now in the ERP system they're utilizing doesn't have WIP reports, doesn't have WIP cost reports. So they've had to sort of bastardize an outside report through Excel, through a individual key holder that develops this. And that's just really not an efficient direction forward. And so I think when some of those decisions come into there, it's you start developing late deliveries, you start developing stockouts, these conditions arrive where it's, I need to see this. How did this happen? And then that starts to expose these weaknesses there. It's not, just one big rock that drops. It's more like these snowflakes that build up into this large pile of things.
Yeah.
When you get into it to an analysis point, it's kind of like a 5 why situation. What happened? Why did it happen? How could it happen? And those start to expose those gaps in your ERP system. For us, and personally, and several of my colleagues, it was the excess inventory. It was delayed landing dates.
Okay.
It was actionable triggers. Actionable triggers has been a recent topic that we've had among several of my teammates. But yeah, I think those are really some important factors.
Yeah. I know you've been using Conversite, but in other words, if you are a supply chain leader and you see these problems and you think you need a different solution, how do you go after? Like, of course, once these smaller problems and productivity and all that you identified, so you convince that you need a new system.
Sure.
What do you look for in the new system? What are all must have a nice to have solution?
That number one thing is going to start with accounting. It needs to have all the financial reports and availability that the team needs. And then we're going to move into intuitiveness with production. Several ERP systems are often curtailed towards one side or the other. It's more inventory friendly, not so production friendly. This is more production friendly, not so inventory friendly. So we have to balance that process out with us. Can it handle the multi-level BOM layers that we're wanting to do? Are we able to actually input and have a demand plan within this ERP system?
Got it.
Those are factors that go there alone. And this is as I referenced earlier, this is a conversation that our team had just coming back from the holiday break. And one of the questions asked was, are what we using right now, is it on the verge of breaking with the growth that we've had? When you have to ask yourself, why do you think it's on the verge of breaking? Right. Yeah. And what troubles have you ran into so far? Because it may not really be a whole new ERP system that you need. Exactly. You may need a smart platform like Conversite to step in and answer those questions for you that your ERP system is lacking. Yeah. So it's important to be honest and have a very clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish with that.
Got it. So now, a potential new systems, AI and analytics kind of systems can promise a lot of value over a period of time. But what do you like? How do you go after implementing? There should be some quick ROIs. So what's in it like for you? From what do you look for in 3 weeks or 3 months, 6 months, whatever?
Yeah. So right away, what I wanted to see was I wanted clear visibility of our weak points, our choke points within our supply chain operation. If my current ERP system isn't exposing this to me, that's why I ran into this situation. That's why I ran into these stockouts. So right away, I want clear visibility on that. And I want to be able to use that information to create a combat plan, if you will, to tackle the obstacle and get it rectified and correct. Another big one that we had was really getting a real-time feel for our lead times and landing dates. That was another huge objective that we had. We have our vendors telling one story, we have accounting telling one story, and we wanted to bridge that gap of information and know what the actual dock to stock time was for our individual products.
Got it. So clearly addressing some of that visibility problem first, and then move on to the next set of initiative. I think it also very well provide the productivity gain if someone is using a lot of Excel's productivity gain to start with. So now, in the last couple of minutes, I want to think about the future. Right now, we are getting into the new year, and in your view, are we done with all the supply chain disruptions from pandemic, or you think it's still continuing for another year?
I think we'll continue on with supply chain disruptions for really the next year or so. I would be ecstatic to see some improvements in that, but unfortunately, I don't really think that impact is coming at all. So we've seen a few things taper back down commodities wise, but not enough not to the pre-level price points that we were seeing. I would love to see that, but unfortunately, I just don't think we're going to get there.
So on a year like, what's coming up, we are hearing a lot of supply chain disruptions, but at the same time, there's also macro economy playing a little bit weird. So watch out. So in that context, I know you have the technology today, but would you buy a new technology? And what promises the new technology should give?
Yeah, I absolutely would. I mean, when you think about the cost impact of a technology such as a AI platform as Conversight versus a full-on ERP implementation comparable to something along the lines of SAP, the cost impact is drastic.
Yeah.
The implementation timeline is drastically different. And did you really gain what you wanted out of it? If you wanted these stories to be told, was it worth the cost you paid to implement the ERP versus the cost to purchase the new technology for Conversight and do that onboarding? In my experience, no, it's not worth that cost. It's significantly easier to bring on a new technology such as Conversight that can create those stories for you. Particularly when you have something that can accurately predict your cash flow and give you some target goals to follow through and on. And that's when we had this conversation just here recently for 2023 about expanding it. Recession talk is across the board.
Yep.
So there's a lot of companies out there that I'm sure are trying to minimize their budgets and push up their reserves. We're one of those companies, and we feel that we're the right direction to go is to trust the AI process, is to really bring it in further as a team member that sits next to myself.
Yeah.
And help us get better, faster, smarter from there.
Yeah, especially, taking those right decisions and more quickly, timely, does make a big difference. I still remember the year 2008, when I was in the data analytics space for another thing. I've seen most number of companies implementing data analytics during the year 2008, while rest all slowing down, because that's a time where we need to control the cost and optimize the spend as much as possible and get higher visibility on the demand and be prepared, right? So absolutely, game on. So I think that's kind of what we are looking for, to partner with new organizations where they need help. This AI augmentation is going to go a long way. It's not really replacing or reducing the headcount. It's all about making your existing team work more smarter. That's what this AIs are going to do. Looking forward to partner with you more and learn the supply chain tricks what you're applying. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Ganesh. It was a wonderful conversation here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.